Hey everybody, what's up? What's up? We had a one-day hiatus. I had to get stuff done yesterday. Alright, welcome to Comic Book Radio, episode 80. I'm your host, Peter Cimetti. Tonight my guest is ISHIRO, FINNEY. We're going to be talking about fighting censorship and cancel culture, all that good stuff. You know, it's like a hobby nowadays. Oh, the world. The world. Okay, so before we get started, before we bring him on, I want to say hello to you guys in the chat. And I also want to let you know we've got Spicer McLeroy with the 20 more memberships for people. He's been on fire lately. Spicer, I think you've populated my entire channel with memberships at this point. I think there's only like maybe 30 people out of like the close to 200. I think you've given everybody else a membership on this channel at this point. Man, oh man, Spicer. Thank you so much. All right. We do have the White Mountain Yeti emoji. That's been added. So we got a bunch of emojis there. Have fun. We got John Henry in the chat. What's up, John Henry? Humble Marty is here. What's up? I'm not going to butcher your name, but I appreciate you, TA. There we go. Wolf10, how's it going? Thank you for being here. H is for Heretic. How's it going? Hope you're having a good night. We got Rick in the house as well. What's up, Rick? Spaceman is here, coming on down from the stars above. What's up? ISHIRO is in the chat and on the panel tonight. Look at that. He's getting around. Grape Nuka-Cola is here. What's up, Grape Nuka-Cola? Says, hey, Pete. Got a cheap short box from Amazon a while ago, and it's getting a little full. That King Cryptid box is looking pretty tempting right about now. Grape Nuka-Cola, I still got to send you a big ol' order. So if you do order that King Cryptid box soon, in the next couple of days, I'll ship everything inside the box, inside of like the big box, and then that'll go to you. Let me know. Let me know. Paul, what's up, Paul? Says you're going to need one of those and maybe a Blood Realm box for good measure, man. Aloise, what's up? Thank you for being here tonight, Aloise. We got Yan Zhao in the chat. What's up, buddy? Earthmind is here too. Hey, what's up, Earthmind? William, how's it going, William? Thank you for being here. And Jay wants everybody to know, what's your favorite toothpaste flavor? Mint, slug, or Texas gray water? So in that unofficial poll, speak your mind. Gray Wolf, what's up? Hope you're doing well. Grape Nuka-Cola is going mint. We got Damien here. How's it going, Damien? Facundo, Ezekiel. Hope you're doing good. Thank you for being here. Spicer McLeroy, yeah, man, oh man, brother, you are very generous. Thank you so much, Spicer. We got, let's see, who else is in the chat here before I begin? We got Real Steel. Real Steel is here as well. If we're sounding out of sync, give us a second. Give us a second, just a second. Maybe we'll get caught up. Paul is in the chat too. What's up, Paul? Sam Rogers is here too. What's up? And it looks like that's about it for now. Okay, without further ado, let me bring him on. He's been very patient back there. The man of the hour, Mr. ISHIRO FINNEY. What's up, Jay?
Glad to be here. Hello, everyone. I am ISHIRO FINNEY, author and alien in a human suit. And I am here to talk about, I guess, as you said, cancel culture, fighting censorship,
we'll talk about
steel.
We'll talk about a lot. Have you seen the show?
I've seen a few of the shows.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry, I'm not a regular watcher, but I do watch
fine.
the show.
That's fine. All right, good. Yeah, we'll talk about a lot of stuff. Don't worry.
But even better, I'm a Scrimshaw Redemption reader, so.
Oh man, Dark Stranger, what's up? Thank you for being here. All right, so I wanna. You've had a couple interesting days this week, wouldn't you say? Did you want to talk about that for a second?
Oh, you mean getting banned from Twitter X?
Yeah, now is that a full ban or is it a...
It looks like I'm suspended for good. It looks like they're not going to reinstate my account. And it was strictly in comment to the fact that the Texas governor declared that the southern border was being invaded and required a military response, I sarcastically said, well, landmines would solve a lot of problems. And that got me banned.
Tisk tisk.
I don't know. I live on a border state. We deal with MS-13 coming across the border and doing home invasions all the time.
I can imagine, man.
So
Well,
I'm a little bitter about that.
um, man, that's like I think it's gonna be a blessing in disguise. I tell you, 2024, I think I might end up just voluntarily going. I leave my account up so no one else can like hijack the name. Probably put it on like private or something, and then just be like, just find me on YouTube or whatever. It's such a mess. It is such an unbelievable mess at this point.
On the one end, I returned to Twitter strictly because I had to promote a book, and I honestly was kind of dreading it. And as upset as I am about being banned, there's a part of me that's relieved that I don't have to get up in the morning and look at it.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
honestly.
it's not a healthy place to be, so all of these things have their downsides, and then all of them are obviously playing into the larger state of the tech corporatocracy that is slowly globalizing the entire world, among other things.
Yeah.
But with that said, I look at the rest of it and go, well, what's the upside? And Twitter has a couple upsides with people, but at the same time, it's got tremendous downsides. And then now the functionality of the site, at least for me,
Yeah.
has become a complete and total mess. Like every other day the thing doesn't work, every other
Right.
day there's something not going right. And then I'm seeing more and more people getting suspended because the AI algorithm is just Looney Tunes.
Well, from what I understand, I hear Elon eventually is just going to sacrifice the entire thing and replace it with his X app when it's ready, but who knows? The thing is, I've put a lot of thought into social media and it being the downfall of civilization. But the problem is I remember back in the aughts. Okay, I old. Back in the aughts, and even a little after that, social media was fun. It was not a terrible place to be. I mean, we'd all say it was a cesspool, but it was a fun place to hang out.
Yeah, it was kind of like a fun digital bar, you know?
And I think a combination of things happened. It was the algorithms and the Zuckerbergs of the world deciding that, hey, we can make more money if we make people mad. But, I thought a lot about, well, what changed? And I realized, even if everything went back, even if we reset everything back to the way it was in like 2010, the functionality was like 2010 or 2012, right? And all that stuff went back. I think a demographic change is really the thing. We can't go back. It's changed.
No,
The
yeah, you can't go back.
the people using it are different. There's a different level of maturity now. And it's just is what it is.
It's kind of, at least in regards to internet communication,
Right.
it's kind of mutated people at this point. That's why and it's strange because I noticed that there was like a role reversal, because YouTube was like, that was kind of for me the place where the don't read the comments thing originated, because it was usually horrible. You'd go on like any YouTube page and it was like the most negative, just crazy comments, just people just in flame wars. And then you'd go on to like Twitter or Facebook or things like that, and it would be more jovial. And
You were talking
yeah.
to old friends from high school.
Yeah. And now it's flipped. Now you get like all the intelligent type people. Like I'd say like 95 to 99% are going to YouTube, having these great conversations, just hanging out, doing this, doing that. And it's not to say that all of YouTube is just like, bliss and utopian here, but I go to just whatever video for the most part of the stuff that I watch, and it's relatively just normal conversation. It's very rare when you get someone in there just losing it and being ridiculous, Even if they're being critical, they're at least still being like competent and rational and trying to explain why they're being critical.
You're right.
It's
I don't know.
strange. But a lot of
guess
things
for,
have flipped nowadays, so.
For my audience, I mean, maybe it's because I'm small enough. Usually if we do a show, it's anywhere between 30 to 50 viewers. So my audience is small enough that I think everyone generally likes being there. So we very rarely get like a troll who just like goes berserk.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it kind of was sort of the norm back in the day.
Yeah.
It's weird how it's flipped. But yeah, I enjoy this is far healthier. Far healthier. So I mean, whatever outcome you want to occur, I hope you achieve it. I hope you get it.
Oh, you mean with
But
Twitter or
yeah,
just
with Twitter, with whatever, man. With whatever. I hope you get whatever you want out of happiness in this world. But yeah, and we'll see, I guess, how it shakes out. But I gotta tell you, the aspect of the whole like, oh, free speech and this and that, and I'm like, man, yeah, I'm not buying it too much, which then makes me sad because I have to do this to you, ironically. And I don't expect you to go down this road because you're a classy dude,
yeah.
but I have to censor you tonight.
Oh, well, what can I not say?
Okay, so we can talk about anything we want, say anything you want, have any viewpoint you want. I want to, if we do offend anyone, I want to offend them with what we say, not how we say it. So in terms of like vulgarity and that kind of thing, I want to keep it to a minimum. People are
Okay.
allowed one F-bomb on the show if they get really emotional. Some people forget and they let two slip, but it's we try to keep it because we do actually have all kinds of different people watching the show and even all different ages too sometime watching the show. So that's all.
No, no,
It's
that's
yeah.
actually very fair. I would say one of the most weird experiences for me, and I felt like a complete jerk, and I really had to work on it, was once I started seeing success and I was at booths, like when I was with Archaea and then later Boom, at signings, right? Suddenly realizing, wait a minute, there are kids around me. I can't be talking this way. And I really had to patrol, kind of watch myself because it's like no, no, this is a
Yeah.
family environment. Don't be a jerk. So I
E-
understand.
Exactly. Yeah, and like I said, I don't expect you to, I don't even think I needed to give you that warning. I think you would have had a good show the whole rest of it anyway. But still, I thought it was worth bringing up to be rather ironic.
Oh, that's
All
just
right.
decorum.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so back to the topic at hand. Now you've got your book that is, and I had a chance to flip through a whole bunch of it. Man, it is
Oh,
well
good.
researched. Holy smokes,
Thank
man.
you.
Yeah, very, very well researched, and I was impressed. You really dove deep into the kind of like the defeminization of women within media over
That's exactly what it
Lord
is.
knows how long. But it hit a peak, and it was great. Where like you could have strong women, and they're still feminine. And if anything, that I think was the main thing to achieve with that, right? That to prove that you don't have to be a strong, you don't have to act like a strong man to be a strong woman.
And
That
in
women have
fact,
their strength in different ways.
yeah, exactly. Not only that women could be strong, but feminine strength was distinctly different than masculine strength. And that essentially masculinizing our women in our comics and our heroines, we're losing something, and not just a little bit, a lot.
Oh
That
yeah,
that those Amazons and those various Valkyrie type characters in our comics served a very important purpose that's been with us since the beginning of time, and taking that away is harmful. I mean, it's
absolutely.
telling women, though, oh, to be strong, you can't be female. And lo and behold, we've got teenage girls cutting their breasts off and dressing like men because they don't want to be seen as weak or whatever.
It's it's sad. It's sad in terms of like the weird kind of psyop that's
Hmm.
been pushed upon people to think a certain way. And then in the same token, you're seeing the feminization of men.
Yeah.
And we're seeing a lot of that also play out in terms of the food because a lot of the food is genetically engineered in a certain way with certain things to boost estrogen levels. So we're seeing estrogen toxicity occur within males and females, and they take shape in different ways. And the thing is now, then you have that two step of the culture and the stories and the everything else. So societally, they're being psychologically played and then biologically played by the food they consume. It's creating like this Joker product situation. Like you remember the
Right.
'89 Batman movie with
Oh
that,
yeah.
where yeah, so you're kind of creating this weird perfect storm to make people that wouldn't be in this sort of state. Now they're going to be in this kind of very confused, very easily manipulated state, which it kind of seems like it's all on purpose, isn't it?
I would, I'd have to say a fair amount of it definitely is on purpose. I mean, some of it is more of a mind virus of a certain ideology that gets people to act in concert all because they have the same point of view. And so, to some degree, like a lot of the stuff the feminists do may not be very well planned, but they're all thinking the same thoughts and they're all thinking in the same direction and therefore all acting in a similar behavior. Meanwhile, you do have vested political interests who will use the tame word, want to groom. They do want their weird proclivities legal. And, you know, if there is any doubt that those proclivities aren't being pushed upon us, the rabid and vile reaction to Sound of Freedom is all the evidence we needed. If none of that was going on, that movie would have come and gone and nobody would have thought twice. But since so many people got defensive over it, that so many people swore, oh, that's not real. No, no, clearly there's a certain group of people out there who want their kink legalized and okay, and they want, um, well, I don't really get into it in the book. I touch upon it, but it seems to continually go back to the poison of the 20th century, which was the Frankfurt School
Mm.
and postmodernism and communism. I mean,
Oh
for some
yeah.
reason, you look to Foucault, you look to communism, you look to postmodernism, they were all pedophiles, perverts, deviants who wanted an excuse to believe what they wanted was okay. And lo and behold, the one thing that blew me away, the thing that when I started this was just going to be an article. Boobs of Steel this was just going to be an article that all started because of my lovely, lovely wife. And when we got into the comics industry, it was kind of a renaissance. The aughts were a great time for comics.
Hmm.
And there was all this interest, a lot of great comics were coming out, and we were more than welcome. We were more than willing to welcome new people through the door. Maybe we shouldn't have done that. Because with Hollywood and all these newbies that didn't know anything, who didn't really love the comics, they brought their politics with them. And suddenly things like, well, wait a minute, Power Girl isn't okay. Why? Her boobs are too big. Well, why is that bad? We were supposed to just take it on their word that that was offensive and sexist. Oh, well, you know what? Laura Croft is harming girls. Proof? No, no, we just took it on their word. And we humored them and we put up with it. And so I was writing this article about how essentially we went from one of the best times in comics to where we are now because we were too accepting, we were too tolerant, and said, "Okay, yeah, we'll give you a shot. We'll let you do this." And the next thing we know, we don't even run our own industry anymore. The communities that we built for ourselves, we're not even allowed in anymore. The books that we all founded for ourselves and supported and built up for ourselves are not for us anymore. They're not for you. Those movies are not for you. We kept Star Wars alive for decades. Oh, it's not for you anymore.
It makes you wonder what attracted you to the hobby and to the characters and to the story to begin with, if everything about them
Yeah,
displeases you.
but
Because I understand being attracted to the medium, let's say the
right.
storytelling medium, and then these are the stories you want to make, and you go the indie route and things like that. But to want to work within the corporation, obviously there's an ulterior motive, and I would say that, and some people go, well, gatekeep the hobby. I think I think it's a slippery slope to go gatekeep the hobby. You want to be more like a bouncer, right? So people can come
Right.
in, but if they start acting up, you want to be like, hey, 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 not cool. But furthermore, the fans can gatekeep all they want. It doesn't matter because what's happening is that you're getting people that are hiring people. And whether they're knowingly doing it or it's a Trojan horse scenario kind of a thing, because I've experienced it too, where I thought these people were cool coming in. I thought, I mean,
Hmm.
we knew each other for like 10 years in some cases. And then whatever it may be, if they were scared or if they were intimidated or, I don't know. But then they flip one day and then all of a sudden you don't know them anymore. I mean, there were people literally that I'm like, I just had this conversation with you on the phone 2 nights ago, what are you talking about? And they go, no, we didn't. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
We didn't
It
talk.
got. It was like a
What?
cult.
It was crazy, like
Yeah.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers level crazy, and so it's that kind of thing where it's like a Trojan horse scenario where you get certain people in that have ulterior motives that want to achieve certain things, and that's the reason that they go for these corporations and everything else. And then once they're in, if you fire them and you get in there, it turns into an even bigger mess for certain people, and then the people who fired him would get fired and replaced, and this and that, and so on, because it's an initiative that's being pushed from the top. It's not something that I think starts at the bottom. Would you agree or would you disagree with that?
I would generally agree that it does come from the top, and if the people up top really were thinking with the logic of a love of the medium, a love of the stories, a respect for the stories, because I hate the excuse. Oh, they're just funny books for kids. Oh, they're just movies about space wizards.
Yeah,
No, they're
yeah.
not.
It's so dismissive all of a sudden, when meanwhile they
They,
know how powerful they are.
well, not only that, they are our modern mythology. I talk about this quite a bit. I mean, I'm kind of in a weird position because I've got a lot of my audience is religious, but yet I'm an atheist, which
Hmm.
is a weird situation. But often I've talked to them and I'd said, look, I'll use just as an example. I say the Christ story, in my opinion, doesn't have to be real. The story itself is more powerful than any human ever could be because of
Absolutely,
one
yeah.
story altered the course of civilization. And for an entire generation, Luke Skywalker's not a real person, but for an entire generation, he was that iconic, mythical standard of he was the guy that was eternally optimistic. He was the guy that was even he was going to save his father even though he had turned to space Hitler. He was the one that would never turn his back on his friends. He was the person who, no matter what, against all odds, would always come through. And that resonated. He was our Jason, our Hercules, and it served that function in our culture. Captain Kirk, same thing. That spoke to and actually I have a rule. I have a kind of a theory of how effective. When does a story transcend being a story and becoming a artifact of culture, something that influences the culture? And the one I like to use is the American fairy tale, The Wizard of Oz.
Hmm.
During its era, The Wizard of Oz was kind of like the Harry Potter of its time. But The Wizard of Oz has infiltrated our language to the point of you don't even need to see the movie to know the man behind the curtain, what that means. The yellow brick road, the wicked. There are all these phrases that, or another one, the body snatchers. You don't have to have ever seen any of the body snatcher films, yet you know what a pod person is.
Yeah, yeah.
Live long and prosper. May the force. These phrases have wormed their way into our language that they have shaped who we are. They've become shorthand for larger concepts. We don't have to spell out this long story about what the man behind the curtain means. We can just say man behind the curtain and all know instantly that's what. Okay, you're talking about someone who's feeble hiding behind a mask of greatness. You don't need to tell the whole story. And a lot of these properties that are getting destroyed are the backbone of our culture. And for them, to be destroyed by avarice and really sick politics is very disturbing.
Yeah, And that's the thing that always gets me. Going back to the point you made earlier, where they're so dismissive of the power of this kind of stuff, the power of storytelling. And I've said this multiple times on this channel. Storytelling is literally, you go back as long as you want within humanity. It's what defines human culture. It's what defines communication among people. I mean, you pretty much get storytelling and food,
Yeah.
and that those are the things that can unite and define culture. Those are the things that can end war or start them, right? So depending on how you're growing those things, and I think it goes back to the social media aspect we were talking about to start the show. I think that the powers that be saw, wow, they're kind of getting along globally. They're kind of getting along. I thought that this would have been much worse. And it's like, well, we got to do something about that, because how are we going to have people hating each other all the time if they're getting along on finding their shared commonality?
I think that was kind of what happened. It was in the 80s or in the 90s and then 2000s. Racism was almost forgotten. You could have that episode of South Park where all the races, they make that flag where all the races hang the black guy. And you can have that joke. And the joke is the kids don't understand that it's racist. They thought it was about violence. You remember that episode?
Yeah, yeah.
There's no way in hell you could make that episode now. There would be riots in the streets. And, we had suddenly gay marriage was okay by the odds. And suddenly, all these different things that had divided us, we didn't care about anymore. And then we had terrorists attacking us. And honestly, I think certain factions in this country realized, well, we can't run on the division of gays anymore because gays got marriage. Well, everyone racially is getting along, so we can't run on racial division. We can't run on women's rights because women are excelling. I think they needed to divide us again. And they said, okay, we need to create problems so we can continue to elect people into office.
To
That's one
solve
of my
problems.
Yeah,
It is. It's like RoboCop.
it is. It actually is. It is like RoboCop.
And that's the thing to me that's so insane, is because we've had mountains of fiction for decades that were
Right.
like, you go down this path, this is kind of what's going to happen. You sure you want to go down that path? All these warning signs, all these cautionary tales. And then instead there's so many people where you would imagine that it doesn't who cares if the powers that be introduce certain things or try to divide people or send out a certain message. People would wise up and go, what are you talking about? But instead it's insane to me not to see young people, because young
Yeah.
people, they lack perspective, they lack experience, they lack a thing that older people should have called wisdom. But then I'm seeing so many older people fall for it, and I'm like, is it a desire to be youthful and to be with them, on that level, and,
Um,
and that's what's making you want to be so stupid?
we talk a lot about this on my show, and I don't want to get too inflammatory. I mean, we have a show called Pissed Off Gen Xers. I don't know if you've seen that. And it is just a bunch of Gen Xers. We get together and complain. It always ends up just ranting, us ranting about things. And I would say, unfortunately, looking at my own parents, I can say that the falling out with my parents was they chose woke over me because they wanted to remain hip and with it. I
It's
mean,
like
it's
being,
that
I don't
simple.
know, is it being so fearful of our own mortality on some level that people grip to wanting to stay in a younger state of mind, even if that younger state of mind is really promoting foolishness?
Um, I don't know what the hell boomers are thinking. I think on some level they never thought they'd get old. The Gen Xers I know, I mean, now granted yeah, we're kind of the weird generation. There aren't
Yeah.
nearly as many, for every two boomers, there's one Gen Xer. For every three millennials, there's one Gen Xer, something like that. There aren't a hell of a lot of us. So we're kind of in a weird spot to begin with.
Well, they keep also moving the goalposts on that. You
Yeah.
notice that?
But generally, I've seen Gen X kind of aging decently because I think none of us expected to live past 30. But I would say my parents' generation, I don't know what the hell they're thinking.
I don't know, man. I don't know. But yeah, I think, and it's tough to say because I'm wondering if we're seeing something occur, if we're seeing something occur and fold out generationally that maybe has always sort of been happening, and we're seeing the different strategies affecting different people at different points in time, and maybe when we get, to 60, 70 years old, and then we start acting like the idiots that would be acting like in the current day and age that would be like 20 years old. But I don't know. I guess we'll know when we get there.
Yeah.
Good grief, I hope not. But I mean, I hope we get there, but I hope we don't act like that.
One other thing. There is something that did happen. I don't know if you're aware of this. There are numerous people in the entertainment industry that talked about this, and I know this definitely happened in comics. Was at some point the money people at the very top came to the decision, wait a minute, there are a whole lot more millennials than there are Gen Xers. You know what? We don't, Gen X is really hard to market to begin with, which we were very hard to market to. And there was a conscious decision to kind of wipe the slate, get rid of a lot of the Gen Xers they were employing, and replace them all with a new generation of millennial college graduates, a lot of them out of women's studies or ethnic studies, or people who just didn't have a lot of experience. And this is an issue in Hollywood, especially. A lot of writers and a lot of directors that had been in the industry for 20 years all lost their job to college graduates who were millennials who had no experience but could be paid dirt cheap. And that was one of the major things that caused a huge dive in quality. And I know that the comics industry, to some degree, had the same idea. Well, you know what? The Gen Xers are getting old. It's time to forget about them. We got to get this new audience that's a lot bigger anyway. And you saw these bizarre attempts to appeal to millennials, and a lot of them were really goofy. Like the first attempt with America Chavez, if you get to that point in my book, was a very, very tone-deaf attempt to appeal to millennials.
Yeah, you know what though? It kind of reminds me of what they were doing to appeal to Gen X back in the day too, where everything was this like hip hop theme and
Extreme.
extreme, and yeah, everything was extreme, and it was a little bit of like a poser punker kind of a thing.
Oh, I remember that. The
Yeah,
car was crowd surfing.
and I think that's like yeah, and I think
You remember
that's
that
kind
commercial?
of yeah, and I think that's kind of how a lot of things go. I mean, just even advertising wise, they'll push it to the younger generation because they allegedly have more disposable income or whatever. But they always do it in a way that feels like they, to use the analogy of trying to appeal to someone young, you turn the hat around, you turn the chair around, and you're sitting there and you're like, so let's rap. And it's just and it's someone who's like not of the same age at all, like two generations older, who's like, I get you kids, like I'm hip. I think like Kids in the Hall had a skit that was like, what, he's cool, he's hip, he's 40, something like that. So it's stuff like that, and that kind of thing has been happening for as long as there was at least like purposeful, coordinated marketing and advertising to various demographics.
Kids,
But
no, I don't get you. I have no clue. I'm old.
but that's the thing that I find funny though, because at the same time that happened, there wasn't like a relative complete you're ignoring everyone else. Right, so at the same time that you would have all the oldies playing on the radio,
Right.
you'd have the stuff from the various other decades. Now all of a sudden, classic rock isn't like it's like classic rock's like stuff from, I'm hearing like '90s music on classic rock stations, as if classic rock just keeps moving up.
Right.
It's just like a perspective of like 25 years, but like classic rock is a specific era of
Right.
music. It's not just like the older, like one day Taylor Swift will be classic rock. Doesn't just keep moving up. But like that's how they're playing it in a very strange way. And then at the same time, I find it even more odd how modern day, especially, you're talking about they take certain franchises and certain characters or certain whatever and reboot it to appeal to the new audience. which makes no sense because the new audience could care less that that thing happened like 30 years ago and
Right.
speaks to the previous generation or two. And then the previous generation or two is like, that's not what that is. And the other one is what that is. So it's kind of it starts landing in this weird dead zone. But what I find more fascinating about the whole thing, especially in terms of the way it's pushed culturally, is, and you touch upon it in your book as well, is all of a sudden there's a proclamation of this is the first time this has happened. That
Yeah.
didn't exist before. We didn't have strong women characters before. We didn't have racial, diverse casts and stories and things from different cultures incorporated throughout. That didn't happen until like 2015, 2016.
It's like history didn't start for them until 2000. It's like the year two, anything prior to year 2000 did not happen. The classic run of Chris Claremont on the X-Men never happened. Yeah.
It's strange. It's very strange. And that's the part to me that is so strange. Is the complete the wanting to ignore completely what had occurred in the past and proclaim that not only did it not happen, but that it purposefully didn't happen. Like they didn't want, people didn't want in the 80s or the 90s or the 70s or whatever to have any of that around. It was just straight white dudes and everything. Everything else was subservient. Everything else was in the background.
Right.
You know,
And that was as if the entire black exploitation film movement never happened.
which are unbelievably empowering.
Yeah, well,
What a
they
great
changed
genre.
film.
Yeah,
And in the print, did you read the? Did you get the PDF?
I got the
The
PDF.
Okay,
Yeah,
so yeah, you saw the whole thing where I had the bit about Pam Grier. I mean, Pam Grier was the first modern action movie heroine, as in the modern sense, not the classic sense. And it's like, there you go. There's your empowered black woman, and she was a great character.
absolutely.
And with yeah, I don't know. That is one thing with Boobs of Steel. I had noticed how many times while writing this book, how many times there was an attempt to wipe away history, kind of portray history as being this very racist, bigoted time. And now finally, in the year 2015, finally we're going to have civil rights.
Yeah, finally we're enlightened now.
Right. And in fact, it's a huge step backward. Yeah.
Yeah, and that these kinds of things, these kinds of notions, aren't broadly judged as archaic and wrong, but and just isolated to a couple individuals. If I had to statistically speak, a couple individuals, statistically speaking, even if you're talking about 1 million people across a planet of like 6 to 7 billion people, are racist, misogynist, bigoted, yada yada.
Right.
You're talking about a small percentage of people compared to the rest of the whole world. Is that great? No, it's not great. Of course it's not great, but we all acknowledge that it's not great. So when it turns around, it's like, oh no, the majority of people have felt this way. That's a very strange thing because it's like, and again, mathematically, even we're ignoring the law of averages, where there's so many more people who would fall into these demographics that must be self-hating individuals in order to participate in it.
I think another one that I think really summed up the tenor of our time right now, and never mind the aftermath and you know the whole thing about fentanyl and what really happened in the camera footage. When we got that first news that a police officer had killed George Floyd, there was, we knew none of the facts, but it really did look pretty awful. There was no outcry from white America saying, oh, the black guy deserved it. No. Across the board, you had police departments, you had city officials, you had politicians. I mean, there was a national outcry across all races saying this was wrong. Yet somehow, BLM still spun that into, oh, see, white people want us dead. that should have been a uniting moment for the nation. That should have been a moment when everyone said, see, we all agree. We think this is bad. But they didn't want to see that. And that isn't what the news wanted to report. I mean, it's kind of fascinating. And that I've even brought that up to people, saying, look, police departments were, making public statements saying, we denounce this. And yet still, what did it turn into? Riots and defund the police. You know, that says a lot. It was like, no, we want to be angry. We want division. And that's
Oh,
really
exactly.
worrisome.
Anyone in a position of power that was able to not suppress it. That's not the word. But kind of encourage calm, encourage unity, encourage a watershed moment, encourage a self-awareness, kind of like let's be reflective upon what's occurring here, and all realize that yeah, we're all looking at it and going,
Right.
this is horrible. Something has to change, and it requires all of us to realize that moment and make that a reality. And anyone in that position was like, nah, nah, we're just gonna go
Well,
straight for it and be like, yeah, this is all horrible. This is that person's fault. This is this society's fault. This is that culture's fault. This is that person with that skin color's fault. This is that kind of gender's fault. It was like, wow, all of a sudden it came out of the woodwork of like, now is the time, divide and conquer, big time, step on it.
BLM, the Southern Poverty Law Center, all the usual suspects came out of the woodwork and said, no, see, white people hate you. And it's like, that's not what the nation's saying. I mean, you take the pulse, that's not even what the police are saying. I mean, across the board, everyone was in agreement. This is bad,
Yeah.
or at least this looks bad. And that is not, a blind eye was turned to the obvious so that people could remain angry and divided. And that really worries me. That is terrifying, in fact, that people
Absolutely.
would want to remain divided and angry when you've got, well, we as an entire nation saying, okay, yeah, we need to sort this out. We agree with you.
Yeah,
But
it's yeah. And that's the thing, that's where it goes back to tie it into storytelling and things like that in terms of censorship. We're seeing a lot of censorship of certain ideas being just put into stories, but not necessarily through a certain government or a certain entity or whatever. And I don't think a lot of people understand how much the government works by proxy nowadays.
right,
So it gets around a lot of different things. It gets around a FOIA, which is a Freedom of Information Act, by burying certain projects within certain private companies so that you can't request that information from those private companies, even though they're working with the government for that government contract. And it also puts other things into play too, like encouraging self-censorship by making examples out of various people throughout various things. And people will go, oh, cancel culture is not real, it's consequence culture. But yet, meanwhile, I would say that, well, where's the consequences for everybody then? Because then that's what is justice. Justice is when you're talking about, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter where you come from, it doesn't matter how rich you are, poor you are, whatever it is, what position of power you're in. Justice is justice. And if you've done this wrong thing, then it doesn't matter who you are. You have that consequence play out.
right.
But you see it happening all the time. And you really have to be purposefully blind to it to not see that. So when you have cancel culture come along, now you're having it being encouraged. And cancel culture's always existed. It's called mob justice.
Right.
So for people to say it doesn't exist, it's always existed. It has always existed. So you have to, again, be purposefully ignorant to history itself, to when it was being used in horrible, horrible ways. There's always been people that were encouraged to hate other people, maybe ostracize them, not hire them, kill them, whatever it may be, because they were othered. And they usually were othered because they went against the narrative being pushed by the establishment.
Well,
So for people to go, it doesn't exist, it's puzzling to me.
one of the things that I really wanted to push with Boobs of Steel when I wrote the book, and as I said, it originally started as just an article about seeing all of these feminine archetypes being removed from our comics due to being offensive, and seeing that, 20 years down the road, girls don't want to be girls anymore and they're removing their breasts and trying to look like men. I don't think that's unrelated. But when I started researching it, I just fell down this rabbit hole of realizing how long this had been going on.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that Frederick Wortham, I bring him up, we all know him as the guy who wrote Seduction of the Innocent that
Yep.
nearly destroyed the comics industry. All my life, I had been told he was a conservative Christian Bible thumper who wanted to get the filth out of comics. That is how it's always been told.
Child psychologist too.
Yep. I found out he was neither a Christian nor a conservative. He was actually a German-born Jew who had fled the war and come to New York and was an avid Marxist. And he was convinced that unless he had control and people of his ilk had control of the media, that somehow the United States would turn into the next white nationalist state, the next big white nationalist threat, and therefore they needed to have strict control of the media. And by they, I mean the rich elites, was his argument. He wanted violence removed, but another thing is he went after specifically Wonder Woman, and feminine beauty. And he used the argument, oh, when girls see these buxom women, they get eating disorders and they hate themselves. Or they go into prostitution, was another one of his claims. And he went so far as to claim that Wonder Woman was a white nationalist and that Wonder Woman was the most dangerous character in print today, or in his time. And it's kind of interesting that then we see that exact same argument used again in the 1970s when Gloria Steinem kind of brought Wonder Woman back on the cover of Miss Magazine. Now, she had been great friends with this woman, Betty Friedan. Those were the two big power players in the feminist movement. Friedan, a big-time Marxist, did not approve of seeing a beautiful woman, a mythic figure, representing their movement. And that Ms. Magazine cover was so controversial, it destroyed their friendship and actually tore an irreparable rift between the Marxist wing and the pro-sex, choice feminist wing in the 70s. And that was a huge divide. And later when Linda Carter became Wonder Woman, again, it was the Marxist wing that were like, and the political lesbians who were violently opposed to the idea of a beautiful woman representing women's empowerment. They wanted her to be ugly, flat-chested, and mannish. And it's interesting is that same argument, we see it again with Greg Rucka in 2016. Well, Frank Cho's making Wonder Woman look feminine. I want her to be flat-chested and muscular.
I want her to be Wonder Man. Why can't
Yeah,
she be Wonder
exactly.
Man?
And in that very same year, 2016, feminists sided with Islamists in protest of the fact that Wonder Woman was going to be an honorary UN ambassador to women and girls. And at the top of their list, their big two claims, their complaints, both feminists and Islamists, were one, her boobs are too big and she's white. And that mythical characters are bad for us.
You know,
Well,
I think. So I think what we're seeing too, though, is once American pop culture started becoming more globalist, I think that really started pushing certain things. It really started pushing. Well, is American pop culture really living up to the standards of the rest of the world? And it invited that conversation. And I think once that conversation was invited, as opposed to empowering the other cultures of the world and their stories and their characters and their myths and their legends, because we see that all the time too. Like we'll go, why don't they? It's so rich. All these cultures are so rich in history and their own thing going on. But yet, time and time again, it goes back to whatever's happening within the American pop culture. And I think as soon as we kind of started having that happen, whether it happened organically or it was pushed by corporations getting more and more global, which I think that's a big part of it too. It did. It opened up the door to this kind of conversation and this kind of, well, are we really being as inclusive as we can be? And the thing is, no, we're not being as inclusive as we could be, because we're talking about American culture.
Right. It's our culture.
It's not global. There is no global culture. The only global culture we have is the shared human experience, for the most part. For the
Right.
most part, because there are still, I mean, hell, there's still places in the world. There's still corners of the world that don't know what the hell year it is. If you really, want to look at it civilization-wise, where they haven't really changed for a very long time, and they'll find these pockets of, tribes deep in the jungles here and there that it's like a different planet. So, and then I think, what is it? A third of the world doesn't have internet access. That's a lot of
Right.
people. So you're talking about all kinds of different things in terms of the way culture is playing out. So we're not referring necessarily to this entire like global takeover. It's really mostly referring to a certain aspect of the world that has access to such things.
And there really is a kind of this desire to turn us into this like non-gendered kind of potato person who we all look, think, and act the same. And
Oh
I
yeah,
can't think of anything more depressing.
it's all part of that transhumanist stuff that's been going on
Yeah.
for decades.
I
Yeah.
mean, we need, you know, myths and legends of heroes and heroines that we can aspire to. Maybe we'll never achieve it, but we don't. That doesn't matter. We need that part of our, I guess, soul or subconscious needs to be fed. You know, I know I focus primarily on the Amazonian archetype in book one of Boobs of Steel, but I go through a full history of why that archetype exists and why she's important and why she's remained throughout history, basically because our brain needs it. That is a part of our subconscious language of symbols. Our brain needs to remain healthy. It expresses something. And one of the things I theorized is that one, the these hyperfeminine goddess figures are supposed to be the embodiment of female power. And what would the embodiment of female power look like if not hyperfeminine? Not, I don't know, what's her name? The soccer player, Rapinoe or whatever.
Oh, I think I know who you're talking
Yeah,
about, but I don't
she
know her
wouldn't
name.
look like, you know, a mannish, asexual, bearded woman thing.
Yeah,
She
what
would
happened
look,
to
what?
Mia Hamm? Remember Mia Hamm?
Uh, I don't even think I know who that is.
That was like I think in the '90s, when women in the women's soccer they were kicking butt.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, sorry.
But yeah, and I think for men as well, when a man encounters a powerful woman, it doesn't matter what she looks like physically, there's that psychological subconscious image, and characters like Wonder Woman or Big Barda give form to that subconscious image. And that's part of what mythology is. And I think that our subconscious mind, the mind that call it the soul, call it the collective consciousness, whatever you want, whatever Jungian term you want to use, that part of the brain needs to be fed as well. And we are horribly, horribly starved right now.
It speaks to us for a reason.
Yeah,
It's within the DNA, honestly. It's instinct at this point. It's been around so long. It's ingrained into us. And to extract that and then squash it. Man, if you're able to do that, if you're able to crush the instinct of human beings, and I've had my suspicions about, and it goes a little bit into like the woo-woo territory with why they
yeah,
really target women. And because of women's intuition. Because women are more in tune with various things emotionally. Women, I mean, you even conjure the word, right? Say psychic. Most
right.
people are thinking of a woman. So like generally speaking, women seem to have a better grasp on a feeling about things that are occurring. So, and it's not to say that men don't, but for the women I've known in my life, it's true. And even throughout history, it's generally true Now that's it's a painting with a broad brush, but at the same time, there's a reason for it, and I think there's a reason that they target women on that level to really suppress that, because I think what is there, I think it's like a superpower, and it's keeping it underground. You're squashing it. If you were to, if we were to get comic booky with it, which why not? It's just comic
Yeah.
book radio. If we had like a Professor X's school, and he's going to teach you how to manifest your power, your inner potential, your superhuman latent abilities that many people do have. They just have to constantly focus on them, train them, and hone in on it, develop it. For women, I guarantee a lot of it would be, you see a lot of psychic ability. You see a lot of that tapping into instinct. You see a lot of the stuff that's generally more of a feminine feature. So you're talking about like nurturing. You're talking about emotion in a good way. You can harness that and focus on it. But if you turn it upside down and you do what I was talking about too with the way that a lot of the foods nowadays, it's estrogen toxicity. You turn every single positive into a negative,
Right.
and you destroy even males in the process. So you have men that are becoming more filled with estrogen toxicity, depending upon what their diet is, what their lifestyle is. But the thing is with women and men have like a 24-hour cycle hormonally, where they're constantly going through the phase. But women, it's a monthly cycle. So you're having all these different things that are hitting at different points in time, and you're seeing different things occur because of estrogen toxicity. They're experiencing a lot of worse type symptoms associated with that cycle. And men, what they're experiencing is they're becoming more emotional in a bad way. They're becoming, their bodies are becoming less precluded to actually benefit from the testosterone that their bodies produce, which does all these various other things as well. So there's a lot of different things at play with it. It's not even just the level of, because that's the thing, it's everything. Everything is being hit all at once. And I think we're being exposed to a lot of different things too fast, too soon, and we're not prepared on how to handle it. I mean, this is like just one generation
Right.
where this type of stuff is going down in such a very, very fast way.
Well, we could talk about all sorts of fun conspiracy theories where this relates to, but I think this would probably derail the talk into such a weird place that probably
Oh, I've had weird talks on this show. Don't worry.
but no, I would say the problem is you can get Kat started on this one. I think it'll be a lot of fun when you get her on the air. And I think the problem is in general, there, no matter what you do to a guy, there's always going to be that one son of a bitch who is so stubborn and, so testosterone fueled or pig-headed. He's going to do it his way anyway. It's what is it, Harrison Bergeron. It didn't matter how much they tried to stifle him; they could not keep his male human spirit down. He would not be stopped. And I kind of do think that's kind of what they're doing is going to end up with men is, yeah, we're seeing a lot of bad stuff happen, but I think at the end of the day, the ones that survive this, the ones that come through this, are probably going to be that much hardier, that much tougher. Genetically, men are wild cards. We're more likely to. That's why we're more likely to have birth defects or genetic defects, but also more likely to be geniuses and artistic savants and whatnot. It's just our genome is less stable for whatever reason. Where the female genome is far more stable, but they also there's almost a Cat says it's a herd mentality or a group mentality or a consensus mentality, where there's always going to be the guy that says, screw your consensus, I'm going to do what I want. Where it's a little easier to con women if you can convince them, well, that's what all the women of the tribe are doing. And I think that's partially why they've targeted women the way they have. Did that
Yeah.
make any sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It really does. And I think that's kind of the encouraged mentality to have that's being proliferated throughout. And whether it has to do with it being a focus on the way men are more inclined or women are more inclined, I think it's like they've targeted. I mean, there's a lot of people doing a lot of research about these topics,
Hmm.
and it's funny how much society has become obsessed with genetics ever since allegedly taking out the Nazis. Oh, I mean, reestablishing 1,600 of them in positions of power throughout the world. um, it's astonishing. All of a sudden, the obsession with genetics is through the roof, and then you're all you're seeing every friggin' year is some new development with genetics. The whole human genome project that was taking over the U.S. for decades, and all these other things to map it all out, and all to figure out this, you could figure out that, you could, and then the whole like, oh, there's junk DNA. There's DNA that's not really there for any reason at all. Yeah, sure, it's just junk.
We don't know why the introns are there. There's not really, we're not sure really what purpose they serve. And to consider them just junk is kind of a bad idea.
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
Actually, I kind of bring that up in my first graphic novel, Utopia. That is a subplot, is introns come up. But yeah, that whole thing. The thing is, I don't want to get in too deep into this one either, but I find myself day after day waking up and looking at the world and thinking, it doesn't have to be this way.
That's true.
I
Yeah.
remember the 90s. I remember the aughts. I remember where our headspace was. And for all our problems and flaws, where we are now, it doesn't have to be this way. We don't have to be at each other's throats. We don't have to, it's just, and clearly, I mean, a lot of it was politically motivated. But one of the things I really recall is in the 90s especially, we kind of all knew genetically we were different. That genetically speaking, we're all different no matter what they say, the out of Africa and all that stuff. But we all decided, you know what? It's not important enough to care. We'll just ignore it and we'll all get along. It's not important enough to really split hairs over those differences.
Yeah, that
And
seemed to be the broad consensus.
and it worked. And then the thing that got creepy was the moment, I'll piss off plenty of people, I'm sure. It was Ferguson. It was the moment Obama made it clear that he wasn't everyone's president and played the race card, that things really got heated and it was like suddenly we were dragged back 50 years. And ever since then, there's been this vested interest in proving, oh, no, no, no. White people and black people and Asian people, we're all actually very genetically different. And that's why we can prove that you're the devil. And it's like, I'm not sure you really want to go down that path because the answers we're getting are not pleasant. And they're not really answers I think we want. Is that, do you get me here? Or
Yeah, yeah, I do get you here. And that's the thing is that's the argument of every racist who's ever really lived in the modern time. Is
what?
is the argument of your genetics define who you are and basically why you are the way you are, and then that's it. So there's a hierarchy of humanity based purely on genetics that you can't help. Yeah, that's it. And if you're up here, you're up here, and if you're down there, oh, too bad. You got the short end of the stick, and that's all it is. It's like a genetic
Well,
caste system.
and then, we start getting into what Mengele was looking into. I mean,
Oh, good grief.
no, no,
Yeah,
he did a lot of sick stuff, but ultimately what the Nazis wanted to know was what causes people to behave certain ways? What causes criminality? What causes greed? What causes these traits, and how do we get rid of them? Who do we kill? And it's just like we're dancing very dangerously close to that kind of territory with the stuff that we're messing with, and I don't want to go
yeah.
there.
It's yeah, it's the stuff that should be just the stuff of comic books, right?
Right, right. This is villain stuff. Super villains did this.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. And to see it turn into something where it is a realistic pursuit. If we just, you look at like a switchboard and you just
Right.
flick one switch up, one switch down, and you just shut that off, put that on, and then you mess around and you're like, oh, cranked out the perfect baby, and here we have a bunch of other perfect babies who all do perfect things. Totally not taking into account various factors that come into play, not taking into account how they're raised, where they're raised, who they're raised by, not taking into account their time period and locationally where they are, their friends, what they experience through life, how that affects them, how they handle that, all that. It's just, it's this magical, weird thing treating a human being as if it's a machine.
That attitude seems to have kind of gone back to the 60s. There was this weird idea of mechanistic humans where there was obsession that, oh, well, we could fix everything with pills. Everything, a pill for every switch. And it seems like they've just taken that concept and said, oh, no, now we'll just move up to genetics. And we'll just start flipping switches there. And yeah, it's disturbing. It's scary. I never in my life thought we would ever do something so stupid as to go down that path. I mean, again, I was a teenager in the 90s or early 90s. And then, 20s, I was through the 20s to my 30s was the aughts and after. And remembering what that was like, and it was like, we all agreed this wasn't a good idea, right? Why are we going back?
Yeah. It's true. And like I was saying before, I get when generationally you have these gaps. You have generations that think, well, they just didn't do it right. That's all. We'll do it right. Yeah, you and every other generation that ever thought that way about anything ever. That was a flawed concept. There is no way to do it right. It's wrong. It's inherently flawed. And it's usually inherently flawed because we are inherently flawed. But then that's where it turns into, let's harp on that. If we can encourage people to understand that human beings are flawed and they don't have to be flawed, we can encourage them to transcend their humanity by taking this pill, doing that thing, following this rule, genetic alteration, whatever it may be. And, maybe in a generation or two, we have perfect people that aren't flawed anymore, run by AI.
Oh, yeah, that's going to work. I mean, I love the fact that, the big AI threat, we were afraid of singularity taking over the world. And what we're now finding is that the AIs are utterly neurotic and constantly crashing and committing suicide. And you've heard about that, right?
Yep.
About AI, that they're being fed so much bad logic that they just shut down.
It's like the robot with the paradox in every single sci-fi thing ever, yeah.
Although I do find it funny that you try to program a woke AI and it eventually just shuts itself off because the logic doesn't compute.
Yeah, because it's like the problem is me.
Exactly. But this is kind of I did not expect this show to be this interesting.
That's what we do here, man. So comic
cool.
book radio, for those that don't know, comic book radio, yeah, we'll talk about the comics we like, the issues we like, the stories we like. But I've really tried to get down to, well, what is motivating you to be a storyteller? Why are you here? Why are you doing this? This is a very crazy path to pursue.
Well,
so that means that you have to have this compulsion. Something must be driving you. Something, and I want to get to that. And that's what this is. And the topics we talk about essentially on this show, and I've had this conversation with multiple guests, it's about getting to the core of what matters to you and why. Why are you motivated to tell stories? Why do they matter to you, these stories? And that's because we could talk about our favorite heroes and our favorite stories and our favorite issues and all that. And it's like, it's the same conversation 10,000 times. But everybody has a different motivating factor. But the odd thing I'm finding, and I like learning and talking about all of it, but the odd thing I'm finding is more people now than ever are being motivated by the same kind of conversation we're having right now, in terms of what motivates them with their storytelling and even how they're living their life and what they see in the world. And it's kind of encouraging in some weird way. I know there's a lot of like dystopian sort of stuff that you could go down with these kinds of conversations, but I'm encouraged by the commonality of people's perspectives being on the side of humanity, being on the side of, you know, yeah, we're the way we are. What of it? You know, this is how it is. This is the human experience, and it's a beautifully tragic, confusing thing. But we wouldn't have it any other way, and it's
Well,
deeply encouraging, for me anyway.
the human experience and the fact everything you've just listed there, that's why we tell stories. That's why we write
Exactly.
stories. It's the mirror. It's the these are the stories we're telling about ourselves. This is what these are our deepest desires, our fantasies, our aspirations, our flaws, all taken form in word and picture or motion picture. And when you suck all the soul out of a story or a film and it's just by committee, you lose that humanity as part of it. And we need our myths. We need our stories. I mean, like I said, Luke Skywalker transcended being a movie character when he became an icon to an entire generation of hope and optimism. That is vital, especially a teenage boy needs that. Um,
Well, especially the more too that we are pushed towards a society where sometimes you're in a broken home, sometimes your parents are working, no one's really raising you in certain
yeah,
ways, and they're turning towards these kinds of stories to basically have a moral compass, to have a
exactly.
friend, to have, yeah, some kind of guidance.
Okay, you mentioned moral compass, and I'd like to bring that up because that gets to the root of what's wrong with woke comics, woke movies, woke games. Moral compass. I see a lot of younger people today, and even older people who are ideologically obsessed, say everything's political. And if everything is political, you live a very sad life. A very, very sad life. Because if you can whittle down all aspects of your existence to policy, that, I don't, you might as well just off yourself. You got nothing to live for. But really, what made our stories great is that, Star Wars, oh, it was always political. No. Star Wars addressed higher principles. Star Trek, the original especially, addressed principles, not politics. Values, not politics. Morals, not politics. These were universal things that transcended political parties and ideologies. These were things that spoke to you on a human level. It's like
Hmm.
the choices of right and wrong, the life experiences you, but the human experience. Um, one lesson I used to give talks to high school students about writing, and I'd say, well, one of the tricks to writing is the moment you understand why Hamlet isn't boring, you'll know how to tell stories. And the reason I say it's like it's 4 acts of him just being emo, and then a great bloody, everybody dies at the end. What's interesting about it? And it's the human drama that he's going through. That's not political. It's the human struggle of his self doubt. His father's died. All the other outside elements weighing down on him. That is what pulled us through that story. Um, and it's like these universal truths that we all share. And we've lost that. I mean, you didn't need to be conservative, libertarian, or leftist, liberal to appreciate Star Wars. We could all agree. Yeah, Darth Vader's bad. Luke's good. Trying to bring redemption, trying to redeem your father. That's good. That's not a political statement. That's a human statement. Um, I think another one that they have just beaten the hell out of our fiction is the concept of friendship and love. Men are not allowed to have friendships anymore. No, if men have any sort of closeness, they're clearly having sex. They're secretly gay. Why? Sam and Frodo aren't gay. They share a bond that a lot of men had. Or love. Yes, men and women can love each other and be in a long term marriage and raise kids and it not be some sort of oppressive slave state, a state of slavery for the woman. I mean, that's something we've been doing for as long as there have been humans. And
Well,
I
yeah,
said
to,
that.
to dwindle the concept of love down to
Yeah.
just sexual attraction is a very slippery slope. Very strange.
Yeah. Anyone who says that families are bad or you shouldn't have a family, if they want to deny you a mother and father or deny you the right to raise children, they don't have your best interests at heart. They don't. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And man, I gotta tell you, I had no idea that an hour and 15 already passed.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, okay, do you want to know why I write stories and then we'll end this?
Yeah, yeah. We'll do another 15 minutes, and yeah, we'll try to get to an hour and a half, and then
Okay.
call it a night.
I wrote Boobs of Steel not out of any creative reason, but because mainly I was originally I was writing an article because I was very, very upset that the body type my wife has is apparently not acceptable in comics. And I was sick of my wife being picked on. And I said, apparently every other body type's okay, but hers can't be represented. That's bull. And you can talk to her plenty next whenever you get her on the show about Power Girl. Second, why do I write stories? Yep. Case File Arkham 1 and 2. Scars, World War Kaiju, all available on Amazon. I have no idea. I'm compelled to. Seriously, I am
That's my
compelled to.
favorite answer. I think that's the only real answer, to be honest with you. If you can quantify it, I question it. It's got to be like I breathe.
Yeah.
Same thing.
The I think I told Kat once, if I hadn't met you and I hadn't found stability in my life, I probably would have ended up as the weirdo living in a box with a typewriter, pounding out stories because he just has to. And I don't know why, I just do.
Yeah, the stories come, the art, the stories, whatever it is, it comes through you. It flows through you. It's like you're possessed.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that. I've got a friend, Ralt's Bloodthorn, who you've got to have on. He is a trip. Uh, he's one of these people that just published a space opera to Amazon and became an overnight hit, bestseller. But yeah, his explanation: he got struck by lightning and then he started writing. Seriously, I'm not making this up.
All right. A finger of God. But
Yeah,
not a,
that's
not
kind
a
of the joke.
tornado, but yeah, that's interesting. What's his name?
Uh, I'll put it in the chat. Ralt's Bloodthorn. He's a good guy.
Ro- Is that his real name?
No, it isn't.
Okay, I was gonna
I'll give you
say.
the
I
honest
mean,
answer. He was in the military. He can't use his real name.
okay, I was gonna say if that's his real name. I mean, enough said.
Yeah.
All right, I'll look him up. Man, oh man, that's funny. Interesting story. You're struck by lightning.
Yeah, he is just. I don't know if he's the luckiest person in the world or the most unlucky because he's had so many very bad accidents that should have killed him, but he's also survived every one of them.
Hmm.
Like falling out of a helicopter. But these are his stories. I'm not going to tell them.
Wow. Okay. Man, oh man.
But is there any other questions you want to ask about my fiction? Or
Well, as far as your book, so you got Boobs of Steel. Well, not you personally, but your book.
yeah.
And maybe you do a lot of push-ups. Who knows?
No, no, no. My wife has boobs of steel.
Now, for that book, before we do wrap up the conversation, I do want to hone in on. Now, you mentioned your wife and that was kind of the inspiration for you writing that
Right.
book. Now, for those that don't know, it's a pretty comprehensive book. I mean, you detail a very extensive history of women in not just in media, but in basically society, in culture, and the portrayals. And you kind of take this because that's how history goes. It's like this roller coaster ride, and you hit like this apex, and then it's like you do the whole you just drop. For you, what point in our cultural history for you was the highlight? Was that was it, and we should have stayed there with or expanded upon it in a positive way.
If we could have stayed in that golden age of the aughts. I mean, it was a weird time because we were all waiting for the other shoe to drop with 9/11. We were all waiting to die. Of course, that was Gen X's in a nutshell. Or we were always waiting to die. But the art was really good. We were getting these great characters. Jeff Johns' portrayal of Power Girl was amazing. We had Brian Reed writing Captain Marvel or Ms. Marvel, which was great. Um, we had the Ghost in the Shell films. It was a really good time. I would have stayed there.
And
That's my
then
opinion.
and then conversely for you, is there any turning point specifically where you could go, that's where we went wrong?
Ironically, the real, the noticeable turning point was 2012. Something critically wrong went critically wrong.
I agree. 2012 was a bad,
Yeah.
weird year.
I mean, we kind of saw it coming around 2009 when we were in the industry. And I never got to my story about working with DC and having one of their writers calling me repeatedly in the middle of the night on a
Hmm.
Catwoman story to repeatedly give Catwoman smaller boobs and make her look mannish. But those were kind of hints that things were going bad. But yeah, just the whole woke thing, the gender thing, just the idea that the erasure of tomboys was really bad. Um, yeah, I would say the early aughts, we had a good thing going, culturally at least. I mean, there was always trouble. I mean, there were always bad things. But I mean, if you think about it, we had some of the best television ever created. We had great films. The comics were really good. There were all these good things going. But then there were also people working within those industries producing good material that made terrible choices. Um, I mean, Bendis, Warren Ellis. I mean, there's a big list of people who kind of invited in the monsters.
Hmm.
But that's a story for another time, I think. Uh,
And my one last thing for you is this: do you think that? But well, we're it's kind of self-evident that the powers that be are aging. They're aging into potentially they're you know gonna be gone soon.
yes.
Do you think that there is a push, like a rushed push to achieve or accomplish something by a certain point in time?
Yeah, I think that the boomers and the handful of precursors to them, the greatest generation types, the Klaus Schwabs of the world, are all suddenly realizing that immortality they thought they would get never arrived, and that they're in a mad scramble to somehow leave their legacy that they never achieved. I think a lot of what we're seeing out of the 60s generation is them looking back on their 60s revolution and realizing, wait a minute, we blew it
Mm,
all on cocaine. And that, someone like the World Economic Forum, they had their master plan and had been working at it since 1971. And all it took was one orange man to derail the whole thing and set it back by at least 15 years. And yeah, I think they're all realizing, hey, wait a minute, like Schwab's 85. He's not
yeah,
going to live very long. Mitch McConnell, what, 90? They're all really, really close to death. And I think that we're seeing the last gasp of a very, very selfish group of people trying to
yeah,
leave their mark on the world. I
yeah,
mean, when you've got them talking about wanting to leave AIs to rule in their place when they leave, it's like you can't take it with you guys.
yeah. It's very strange, and even enacting some kind of well, not some, but various policies
Yeah,
where they're not going to live to see them through. So if there's a fallout, who cares?
and and
Our
what is it?
problem.
And what is it? You look at the people that they're trading to take their place. Justin Trudeau, seriously?
Yeah, especially this past week, that's really been more concerning than usual. But yeah, yeah, man, oh man. All right, thank you so much, man, for
Hey,
being on
thank
the
you.
show. And yeah, this is a great conversation. It flew by, and I just really want to say for everybody that's here, just keep creating, keep doing what it is that's bringing you and those around you joy, because that truly is how you win. That truly is how we create culture. That truly is how we fight what we think is happening, that's going on, that's wrong. Because if you're just going to add more destruction to the mix, you just look around and go, well, there's nothing left. It's just piles of crap everywhere. Now what do we do? And then someone else who's creating the whole entire time comes along and goes, oh, don't worry, I've been working on something. Well, you weren't building up what you should have been building up. So everybody, just keep creating your stories, keep getting your stuff out there. And man, I hope, can I call you, what should I call you? Jay? Ishii? Ishiro?
Oh, everyone calls me Ishi.
Okay, Ishii.
Yes.
Whatever comes for you, my friend, I hope that it brings you happiness. So if you're back on Twitter, hope you're happy with it. If not, I hope you're happy with that as well. So for those that are looking to find you, since Twitter's not an option, where can they find you?
Well, I do a weekly show, sometimes twice weekly, on my channel, ISHIRO FINNEY, here on YouTube. And it's me, Kat, and Rolf's Bloodthorn, and a woman named Janelle, and it's just us rambling. It's fun. You can find me there, but really, I would say the number one way is check me out on Amazon. You really want to know my work? Check ISHIRO FINNEY or Josh Finney for my comics work on Amazon, and please give it a look. Definitely
Awesome.
give it a look.
And do you guys have and I do have the link in the description of the show for both Jay's YouTube and his Amazon. Do you have any kind of sales on a direct website, anything like that you want to shout out?
Oh, 01publishing.com. That's the number one, publishing.com.
Okay, I'll put that in the description.
Get all of our books there, as well as various merch.
All right, awesome. Thank you guys for being here tonight. I'm going to be back tomorrow night with Von Klaus. And usually me and Von have like a paranormal type stream. So we'll see what's on Von's mind tomorrow. It'll be 9 o'clock Eastern. What was that?
If you ever do, I'm big on UFOs. I am very well read on you. If you ever do a UFO show, bring me on.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll let you know. I'll be in touch. Yeah, I cover everything, man.
Cool.
But yeah, thank you guys so much for being here. Again, hope to see you guys tomorrow night. Until then, everybody have a great night and an even better tomorrow. See ya.
Bye.